The views, information, and opinions expressed during the following program are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent the views of Access Communications, its representatives, or its employees.
Call this meeting of February, off to a good start, June 12th, 2023 to order. We're joined by Jeff, our city manager, and Councillor Ford on Zoom tonight. And we also are pleased that the Honourable Minister Laurie Carr is attending here tonight, and we'd hope to get a few words from Minister Carr. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Pleased to be here tonight. I guess I come occasionally just to have a quick little visit with council to hear what's going on, see if you have any concerns, kind of maybe give you an update on stuff that's happening within the province. So I guess just briefly, I'll kind of start with in my office, what I'm hearing most of the past few months is surgical wait times. Some of them are quite lengthy at this time. Combination of factors, COVID, doctors, nurses leaving, trying to restaff up. But we have a very aggressive plan put in place, and it is actually starting to show some success. Last week we were able to announce that we have increased the surgeries that are happening on a continual basis. Now there's still lots more work to do to get that wait list down, but it's a good sign to see that happening. We have the incentives in place for nurses and different designations that are hard to find in rural communities. There's a incentive. If they go to that community, they get a cash payout. They have to stay a certain amount of time, but it's definitely lucrative for them to move to rural Saskatchewan, and then hopefully they love it like we do, and they decide to stay in that community and not move on. Aggressively trying to get nurses from the Philippines, and we have started having some of them land. Some of them are actually working, so that's really exciting. We've increased our seats in all designations of nursing as well as doctors at the colleges. Now that'll take a little bit more time because obviously some of the training is 2 years or more depending what you're going in for, but we are really starting to see some success in that, and then hopefully get those wait times down back to where they were probably about 5 years ago, 3 months or less, depending what you're getting done. But yeah, some really good work. So I'll start there, and I'll just open it up to council and see what you want to talk about. Well, seeing nothing, I'll just... I know, so close.
Thank you, Minister Carr, for coming. I actually wanted to talk about the issue of homelessness and drug addictions across the province. We just recently were at Toronto with FCM, and the problem is very real and very vivid. We've seen a lot of it up close in reality there. But it's also, we talk to a lot of different people in every province and every town and every city that we talk to, it's running rampant. So we're very fortunate here in Estevan. We don't have a large homeless problem, although I think it's probably bigger than any of us realize it is. We just don't see it, especially in the wintertime. But we do have a very real drug problem. And I think that we have to be proactive on this. A lot of it, what a lot of cities are doing, a lot of towns, they're doing the approach of making sure the drug addict has a safe environment in order to inject their drugs. They're making sure the drug supply is safe. They're making sure they have safe injection sites. However, I didn't hear a lot about making sure the people that are walking by those safe injection sites are kept safe. And I think that's where most governments are missing the mark is, and I know that in Alberta, they were actually just had an article regarding the fact that they are doing more prevention and treatment. And I know that your government has just opened up treatment centers in Estevan and other places to make sure that we are concentrating on treatment. But I think more needs to be done. I think that we just need to broaden our horizons there and look at the people that are being treated. I just personally don't see it as a solution to open up a safe injection site, let the person go there and utilize safe drugs, and then leave. I feel like we need to really be following up with that person, because that person is a human being, and I think that's part of the problem, is we're letting them do their drugs because they're free and they're allowed to, it's a free country and they're allowed to do it. But then they're allowed to walk around the streets. So if you're not a drug addict and you're drinking down the street, you're arrested. You know, you get put in jail, that kind of thing. But you can go to any city, and I hope it doesn't happen in Estevan, but they're high right on the street, and they're not being arrested, they're not being taken in, and because it's a bigger social problem. So, and I get all of that, I understand completely. I just think that we're missing the mark with just focusing on the safeness of them being able to do their drugs, and we need to focus more on treatment. And then the other part I want to talk about was with the social assistance, and I think this did change when you were actually the social services minister, but I also know that the bigger portion is the whole government as a whole. And so right now, payments are not made directly to landlords, which I think is also helped make the homeless problem a little bit harder. And the other problem is with these people, they're getting social assistance payments. They're being paid monthly, and they're expected when they get their check to make sure that lasts for the entire month. I think that in itself is an issue. I think it's hard enough if you're paid a good wage to be given a check once a month and said, now go ahead and balance your budget. Most of the people on social assistance have some sort of social disability per se, like it's a drug addiction or something is holding them back, and some of it is poverty, some of it is, there's just so many different issues that could be holding them back, and I just don't think that there's enough services for them. So, for example, if somebody who is on social assistance gets their check every month, what happens to them after? Let's say it's a single mom and she has a couple of children and she runs out of money mid through the month. Who's there to help her budget? Who's there to help her get job skills? Who's there to help her find childcare? Because right now we know that's a problem. And then we have someone who is, say, struggling with mental illness, whether they have drug addiction or not. They're 10 times going to find it harder to be able to deal with everything that's happening. And then if you add drug addiction or alcoholism on top of that, those people just fall directly through the cracks, because now they don't know budgeting skills, they don't know how to manage their money, so they just stop getting their checks because they're not doing it right. And a lot of times when they're in housing, and I'll speak from personal experience, if they don't pay their rent, they're evicted. And there's no services for them. Nobody's going to help them because they don't know how to help themselves. And it's very difficult. And I think that we need to find a way to recognize the human beings that are living in the system and help them.
Okay, that was a really big one. I absolutely agree that homelessness is an issue, and I guess we don't see it as much in our community, so we're very fortunate that way. But in the bigger cities, it's definitely more prevalent and more in your face, for lack of a better term. Obviously, there are several underlying conditions as to why someone may be homeless. You know, mental health, addictions, trauma from their past, you know, just so many different reasons. And so, I mean, dealing with those root causes would be the solution. The province does support hundreds of community-based organizations across the province that specialize in different niches of whatever that type of illness might be, right? But it's getting that person to actually go to those services, stick with those services, and come out on the other side positively, right? So it's a lot of work. There's lots of work to be done. Right now, to your point, we committed to opening 150 new addictions beds in the province within 3 years. We're in the second year. We're over halfway there. And obviously, Estevan has played a very huge part in that. And they're being pretty successful at what they're doing, the model that they're using, because it's not just your traditional addictions bed where you come in for 28 days and you do your program and you know, we'll see you later, you can go to AA. It's they have some pre-treatment beds, they have some post-treatment beds that are really, really important, so that when they do feel like they're done their program, there is that follow-up on the other end to ensure that they're still doing okay. And of course, some of them absolutely will relapse, but then we just try again. The CIS program is what you're talking about. we did go to where clients have to pay their rent all on their own, and we knew that there would be some clients that wouldn't be able to do that. The majority of clients actually do pay their own rent on their own, and they're quite successful at it. And it's part of that learning how to be independent and learning how to pay those bills and how to budget. So for the clients that don't have the capability, we actually have something called trustee services within the province. Now, the trustee services are just in the major centers, Saskatoon, Regina, Prince Albert. I think they're in Moose Jaw and North Battleford as well. But that's the person that gets their money, and then they kind of dole it out throughout the month. But in the meantime, they also try to teach them the importance of budgeting and how it works. And I guess some people think like a person that's on social assistance, that's the only income that they get. We do have income exemptions for people on social assistance, so if they do have the ability to get that part-time job, they're allowed to earn a certain amount before their benefits start to decrease. When we look at a single mom that has children, there obviously are other benefits that they receive because they are a mother, and the children, like whether it be child tax credit, GST, of course you get additional when you have children, and all of that kind of stuff. So, but they have caseworkers. Now, I'm sure there's an ad somewhere looking for a caseworker in the city of Regina, the city of Saskatoon. We can always use more of those. So they try to work with the clients to teach them those skills that they need to succeed on their own. Yeah.
Thank you. I guess it would, Minister Carr, we would all like to hear on nursing home update, where we're at in Estevan.
Sure.
Thank you.
That'd be great. So the needs assessment has been completed, and the bed count is much greater than what we had anticipated once the full needs assessment was done and they looked at the demographics. And obviously people are living longer than they ever have before, you know. We're healthier, so that's a factor also. So the facility is going to be approximately twice the size than we first anticipated. The next step is the business plan that will take place. We should hopefully have it done by late fall. And once that assessment is done, what that's going to look at is it's going to look at location of the facility. You know, are we going to attach it to the hospital? Is it going to go across the road? What is that going to look like? So there's geotechnical that needs to be done, some preliminary drawings as to what both of those would look like. Look at the operations, you know, what does it cost to run standalone? What does it cost if it's attached to the hospital? Are there economies of scale? So all of that will be taken into consideration in the next step. Then we'll meet with the committee again, and they'll kind of look at what has been proposed and what the options and the choices are, and go from there. And then hopefully the request for proposals will go out as long as everybody agrees on the path forward, and hopefully shovels in the ground next after that. So it's pretty exciting. Like, I know it's been a long time. People have been waiting. We've been so successful with our fundraising in the past. Unfortunately, the fundraising was done hoping that we would get a new nursing home. And then finally in, I think it was March of 21 budget, we were able to announce that, yes, we would do a new nursing home in Estevan. So feels like we've been waiting forever, when actually it's only been 2 years that the actual facility has been announced. So,
just to follow up on that, Minister Carr, would there be a need for more fundraising, or is the city's fundraising complete?
no, there will absolutely be a need for more fundraising. So community share is 20%. So obviously it's a much larger facility. It's going to cost more to build. So there will be more fundraising that will have to take place. Now, we don't have to have all of the funds in place to continue on with the steps that we're doing. They can happen lockstep. And even if we're building and the funding isn't complete at that point in time, we would just continue until our commitment is met. It won't stop progression of the project.
Councillor Weiser.
Thank you. Working in a long-term care facility, I know this is what the community wants most. They want to be able to keep their loved ones close to home and it is heartbreaking the number of members of our community that are spread across southeast Saskatchewan just waiting for a call that a bed is available in their hometown. So really wonderful announcement that there's going to be more physical beds available than there are now. I did want to touch on the concept of silos. So part of working in long-term care, not only am I looking at healthcare needs, but frequently I'm also involved with the social services portion of your government, as well as the Ministry of Justice when we're looking at things like public guardians and trustees. I do think there's additional work to be done in bringing all of those groups together. Currently, even when you are a bit of an expert in the field, the ability to navigate between these different government programs is challenging, and we often expect families to do it alone. So that is something that I would like to bring to your attention, that whether that is a patient navigator or some type of support, there isn't someone that families can call that's going to walk them through that process. The other thing I'd like to mention is $10 a day childcare. I know Saskatchewan jumped into the lead in bringing $10 a day childcare forward sooner than other provinces have. The concerns that I have been hearing regularly are that we skipped steps, that we dropped it to $10 a day without first addressing training for people providing childcare, wages for those early educators, that there aren't enough physical seats, so wait lists are up over 1,000 in certain cities in this province, and that even though people need childcare, they're being told it could be 3 to 5 years before a spot is available for their child. So if you can just touch on some of the ongoing changes to make that $10 a day childcare more feasible.
Sure. I'll just touch on your first point regarding silos within the system in general. I know that there was a pilot project done in Prince Albert where they actually worked on exactly what they're talking about. They would have a specific person, and then they would decide who's involved. Is justice involved? Is social services involved? Is education involved? And then get together and develop a plan for that person. I know that that's gone by the wayside, and I don't know why, but I think the PAC teams that have been brought to the city have really helped with some of that. Obviously, you know that with those teams, there is a social services, or excuse me, a social worker with them so that they can help deal with any of the possible mental health issues or whatever that an officer might not be prepared to deal with, or it's just better to have those two people on the scene at that point in time. De-escalate. Sometimes it's not necessary to incarcerate people when it's just a matter of doing that de-escalation and then working with them after the fact. So I do agree that some sort of system would be in place. Now, if there's something specific where people don't feel they're getting, I guess, the services, and there always tends to be, whether it's a mental health or a health problem within there, we do have something called the Quality of Care Coordinator within the province, and we have them spread out all over kind of regionally. So I've heard really good things when people call the Quality of Care Coordinator and tell them what they're looking for exactly, where they live, that they're able to hook up with the services that they need. So I think that's a really good go-to place for that. The $10 a day daycare, whether we were first to jump into it or whether we were last, all of the parameters were put down by the federal government. One of the things that the province really wanted to do was to have flexibility built within that so that the money would flow to the parent and not necessarily the facility. Because if you send it to the parent, then the parent can decide, do I want the institutionalized daycare? Do I want the home-based daycare? Do I want to just have my mom or my grandma babysit, or maybe I just want to stay at home and that funding can just be saved for my child for the future. So we wanted that flexibility with the same amount of dollars that were going to be really flowed into these licensed daycares. So that was disappointing. but it would have been really, really hard to turn down $10 a day daycare for those individuals. Now, obviously, the province doesn't run daycares, so we have a pretty aggressive call out for individuals that want to open daycares. The training has been made a little bit easier for them so that they can actually get licensed up to be able to work in a daycare, but they need to want to work in that type of an environment. And the people that were there actually did get a supplement to their wages. They did get increases automatically, so that was bumped up. Yeah, so I think we're doing what we can, but the training piece is an interesting one. I know that with, just trying to remember, our online schooling that we're going to be doing, some of the courses that are going to be offered through that is that early childhood care, so that someone who is taking grade 11, 12 can take those additional courses, get out of grade 12 and be ready to jump right into a job, right? So that should help, but that's just starting, right? Yeah, and I do agree, the wait times are really, really long for people that want to get into the limited spaces that we have here in Estevan, but I think I did hear there's one more opening up soon. Did I hear correctly? You guys can probably tell me more than that. Anyways, yeah.
Thank you. I've heard the rumors. We'll see.
The rumors, yes.
Rumors, whether it's there. I got Councillor Frank first.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor, and thanks, Minister Carr, for being here. The question I had for tonight was just in regards to the Housing Authority, and I think the city manager's probably brought this up to you before, but one thing we've kind of discussed a little bit was with Housing Authority within the act that governs it. If they have losses, the city becomes a little bit liable for that, as well as the province, and we don't have a seat at that table. So that's one thing I'd just like to put that request forward. I don't know if that becomes a change to the actual act that manages it or how that would work, but as a city, just wanting a seat at the table in terms of what, well, first off, more collaboration with how we can work with Housing Authority, which would certainly help a lot of what Councillor Verova had brought up and being proactive and things like that, but also just in terms of the management of that board. Obviously, if we're at risk of having to fund any losses, we want to at least have one vote on that board would be great. So.
Perfect. Well, I know at one point in time we did have someone on the Housing Authority board. I don't know when that went by the wayside. I had another community ask me when I did have the social services portfolio, because that's where housing falls under. And there's nothing preventing a city councillor from sitting on the Housing Authority. So if council would like to appoint someone like they do for all of the other committees to sit on the Housing Authority, I will put that name forward.
Councillor Cernick.
Thank you, Deputy Worship. Thank you for being here tonight, Minister Carr. I actually don't really have a question per se, but a couple raves and one little rant.
Okay.
The rave for the government for bringing some reality into the conversation of energy. It's good to hear. Rave to the Premier for visiting Estevan, and also the rant goes along with the Premier for not meeting council.
Excellent. So obviously we had 4 different RMs and cities involved. If all of council came, plus union representatives, plus it would have been very large, and the message or the conversation would have got watered down with the limited time that we had. So that's why that decision was made, and I'm really sorry. So the next time the Premier comes, I promise you we will meet with City Council.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Councillor Verova.
Thank you, Your Worship. I don't know what I was supposed to direct you tonight.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So one thing I was just going to mention is with especially the daycare rumors that we've been hearing, what I've been hearing is a lot of red tape. So I was just wondering if, not just with daycare, but with a lot of things, even what we were talking about with the seniors group, and even again with the people who are on these benefits, whether we are trying to open a small business or keep a small business going, what I hear a lot of times is red tape. And that can be a municipal level. I know the city of Estevan, we got work to do on that too, but the provincial level as well. If we can lessen the red tape, we can create more businesses. And sometimes people just need to a little bit of, where do I go next? What do I do? Mm-hmm. You know, and a lot of times if it's on paper, print form, it's easier to follow line by line. This is how I get to the next step. This is what I need. And time after time, since I've been on council, I've heard from people that said, I didn't know. Why didn't someone tell me? And you know, I know a lot of people say, well, I'm not their mother, I don't need to tell them, but I think no matter if you're talking about what Councillor Walliser talked about, what I spoke about, even the housing thing, it's just, if everybody would just make sure that the people they're dealing with knew the next step, because again, when you're dealing with people with the social services system, for example, I just went through it in October, which is again why it's passionate for me. I didn't realize that social services wasn't mental health. And I've worked in the healthcare system for 21 years, but I didn't work in mental health, so I didn't understand the difference. I knew that social workers work down there, but I didn't realize that social services on 5th Street deals with the money. They deal with the budget. But then when you think the person that is involved with social services is getting all the help they need, until you recognize they were just getting financial help. So that's what I talk about, where we can do better, is when I listen to what you're saying, I hear you and I think, wow, like we have a lot of services. Some of them are only in Regina and Saskatoon. Some of it just means we need to bring it to the other centers, especially where places like, I'm sure, North Battleford in the north. You know, there's different places where you go to and you see that they have it way worse than Estevan. But again, we need to make sure the circle is closed. And a lot of times, privacy is always the word they use. We're not going to speak to you, we're not going to speak to you, we're not going to speak to you. But that's part of the problem. When the person who's on the ground can see somebody failing, but the people who are supposed to care for those people or take them or guide them don't let someone else in, right? And whether that's a senior, whether that's someone living in housing, or whether it's a business, we just need to make sure the circle is closed so that the person who's looking for the assistance knows where to go next. And I know we can't hold everyone's hands and build it for them, but I think if we lessen the red tape on every single level, people will be able to find their way better and people will be more eager to help, because sometimes it's just darn confusing to get through it.
Yeah, I mean, we've already talked quite a bit about social services, and there is a privacy issue at sometimes, and sometimes that person doesn't want their family involved, which is hard, because those are the people that are there to help you, and they can't see that at that point in time with whatever's going on with them. But just with red tape in general, you know, opening a business or whatever the case might be, I always hear people say, oh, there's too much red tape, yet I haven't received a call in my office saying, I'm having a really hard time opening this business and I need to know what to do next. We have people call on a level of different things, and for the most part, we're able to just go on the Government of Saskatchewan website, and my constituency assistants will print off what they need or point them to a link if that's what they're more comfortable with. But we're always there to help. So if someone is having a roadblock with a government service, a simple phone call to our office. And if it is something bigger that they can't handle or more personal, then we just open up something called casework. We get a consent form signed by the individual that it's dealing with, not the mom that thinks they need something done or the neighbor that wants their neighbor to do something. That person has to ask for the help. And then go to the appropriate ministry, and then we deal with it more holistically in that form.
And I think just you being here tonight, I thank you again for coming, because by coming here and letting people know that the government is open to hear, and you know, again, I understand 100% what you're saying. People say there's red tape or this or that, but they don't know, or they haven't called, or they don't. But I just think that's just it. What you're doing tonight, you're getting the message out there, so thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Walliser.
Thank you. I'd like to circle back to Councillor Frank's topic. So the mayor had put my name forward for the Estevan Housing Board. I had filed the required paperwork, submitted my criminal record check, and then just minutes prior to the first meeting, I was contacted that being an elected official was an exclusion criteria and I would not be permitted to attend the meeting.
Isn't that funny?
So if you could just...
I will double check, because...
take a look into that, because...
I looked into this specifically for a community up north, and I'm sure we put him on the board.
Yeah, I would be very happy to serve in that regard, so thank you.
Deputy Mayor, I have a question.
Okay.
Okay.
Councillor Ford, go ahead.
Hi, thank you so much for coming, Minister Carr. I know we've talked a couple of times already about questions about social services and social work. Just kind of like the push is being done with healthcare workers right now and going to other countries and trying to recruit healthcare workers. Is there a potential plan to do the same thing to find social workers and bring them to Saskatchewan, or some sort of education push that we could push people to start, really going into this field? Because I do believe a lot of our problems would be solved if we actually had a lot more social workers in our province. And I mean, you hear it throughout all of Canada. I mean, we have a mental health crisis throughout the world right now, and Saskatchewan is no different. And I think a lot of our problems would be helped solved if we did have a lot more people with boots on the ground. Is there any kind of plan to kind of push for that, or to recruit more social workers in our province at all?
There is no plan that I am aware of to actively recruit additional social workers, but I will take that back as an ask.
Well, I think we've gone around and everybody's had a chance, and I really want to just say that we appreciate that you take the time to come and talk to us, and we always learn something, and hopefully we get a bit of our message across to you, so thank you very much.
Great, and I just want to thank you guys for having me here tonight, and I have a really good open line of communication with both the mayor and the city manager. They don't hesitate to pick up the phone or pop me a text at even sometimes very strange hours, but regardless, I'm always open. So if you do have questions, by all means, just reach out. And if you hear a rumor and you think, man, that's crazy, then just call, because sometimes it is just that, a rumor. So have a good night, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. The first item is, could I have a motion to accept the agenda? Councillor Frank, Councillor Cernick. All in favor? Carried. Can I have a motion to accept the minutes of the May 8th, 2023? Councillor Veroba, Councillor Walizer. All in favor? Can I have a motion to accept the Virtus audited financial statement? Councillor Cernick, Councillor Frank. Do we have discussion after?
You can approve it and then
Okay.
introduce.
Okay, all in favor? Now I'd like to introduce via Zoom Sheila Filion from Virtus Group, and she will answer any questions that we have, so welcome. And if you want to say a few words, or we'll let you start. Thank you.
Sure, thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. So my name is Sheila Filion, and I'm an audit partner with Virtus Group. And it was our privilege to be your appointed auditor for the City of Estevan's 2022 fiscal year end. So you just made a motion about the financial statements. I just point out that the format and the style of the statements is prepared in accordance with a template that is provided by the Ministry of Government Relations. So that's why they look the way that they look. So other than a few wording changes, the format and the content is very similar to the 2021 financial statements, so they look very much the same. So overall, in the year, at the end of the year, the city achieved a surplus of $5.7 million and closed the year with an accumulated surplus of $110.6 million. So congratulations to council and to management for the strong financial results for 2022. So our audit opinion on these financial statements is a clean opinion. in that it states that the financial statements present, in all material respects, the financial position and the results of operations for the year ended December 31st, 2022. So in closing my opening comments, I would just like to express our appreciation to the management team. They're critical in order for us to complete the audit, and so we very much appreciate their time and efforts. So that's the end of my opening comments, and I'd be happy to take any questions that anyone might have.
I think I'd also like to thank our city treasurer, Trudy Firth, and city manager, Jeff Ward, for all they do and all their staff. So it's much appreciated. I've looked through that, and it looks like everything, you've received all the information. So I'll just see if there's any questions. What's that? Okay, Councillor Frank.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and I guess this is more to City Manager, but the two big numbers we always love to hear when we get our audited financials is where this puts us with our total debt and our net debt, the two numbers that we love to hear when they're lower and lower. So.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Frank. I can speak to that. So, yeah, I think Sheila mentioned that, I think we achieved our goals for year 20. Long-term debt is reduced from 17.2 million to 13.5. Last year was another year that we managed to get through, complete all our capital projects without having to do a term loan. As council is aware, we just recently did one for this year, but that's the first one this council had to do. So, efficient management of our resources, along with applying for additional grants, has led us to reduce our net debt continually year over year since about 10 years ago. So I think we're in a much better financial position now than we were then. And I think with the strategy that the management team and council has moving forward, we can continue to look at results like this into the future.
Are there any other questions out there? Having seen none, I guess thank you for the report, and we will be talking again later. Thank you. Now, there's a monthly CART report for April 2023 from GFL. Can I have a motion to Councillor Waleser, Councillor Cernick? All in favor? Carried. Okay, there's a request for the nomination for Rod March for a pathway portion. Do we have a motion for that? Councillor Frank?
Just to speak to it.
To speak to it? Okay, go ahead.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. This is a very kind request that that a member of the community put in, and it's something that I had a similar thought at first of. Rod was integral to the pathway project that we did, which is fantastic. However, the more I've given it thought, there isn't a project in this city that's not thanks to the amazing staff that we have, going back the 100 and some years that this has been a city, and it becomes hard to name things after specific employees, because I know my fear would be we'd forget other amazing employees who have done clerk work or other things like that, all sorts of things, everything from the sewer drains that nobody wants to think about but are there and are very important, to parks, to roads, to everything. So I gave this some thought over the weekend and thought we really should almost come up with a nice plaque or something somewhere that just thanks the many city employees from the last, I don't actually know how many years, Judy would know, the many, many years that the city has been around, because that's who has done so much. But if we begin, this would be a little bit unprecedented, because we haven't ever thanked an actual city employee in this way before. And I think if we begin, we won't have enough pathways. That'd be me.
Councillor Verova.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I actually do agree with Councillor Frank. I too thought about this, and I was the one that received the phone call when Mr. Wetch called. I thought it was a great honor for Dale to recognize Rod, because Rod did do a lot of great things for our city, and I agree with what Councillor Frank said. We have a lot of great employees in this city. We have employees that go above and beyond every day, making sure that the facilities we have are kept up to date. We make sure we have good programming. We make sure we have the pathways, and they take a lot of flack. City workers are probably the most watched across every city, every town, every municipality. They're out there for the view of every single person with an opinion, and so which they rightfully have, and they should bring forward. But it's a hard job to be in the public eye, and so I agree that Rod is worthy of the nomination. But I just think that some kind of a plaque or some kind of a recognition for all past, future, present city employees would be better served to honor each and every person that's ever done anything as being a paid employee and done it for the city of Estevan. So at this time, I probably wouldn't support this nomination.
Okay, seeing no motion on that, I guess it dies. We need a motion. Councillor Broba.
I will make a motion that we table this nomination submission and we look at something different to honor all employees, past, future, and present.
Decline.
So we decline this submission at this time.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Frank. All in favor? So we have minutes of the Creighton Lodge Committee from February 10th, 2023 and March 9th. I don't know if we can do them separately or together, but we'll entertain a motion to accept both of them. Councillor Frank. Councillor Cernick. All in favor? Who's the committee member? Are you there? Okay, Councillor Frank.
Once again, thanks to a great management team. Creighton Lodge is always just top notch. It's wonderful. We had a great fundraiser last month. It's been a month already. Yeah, it has. With the game show night and already started discussing and planning for the next year's event. So that's been fantastic. There is a little bit of work ongoing for a kitchen renovation. That's going to be exciting addition to Creighton Lodge to keep updating the building and keep maintaining it. So definitely something, if you have more questions about the kitchen renovation or have a large bequeath you'd like to leave, please get in touch with the management at Creighton Lodge. So
thank you. Thank you, Councillor Frank. Anything else? So now we have the minutes of the Southeast Transportation Planning Committee for April 25th, 2023. And what is the wish of council? Councillor Releaser, Councillor Cernick.
Acceptance and approval.
Acceptance and approval, thank you. Councillor Cernick. All in favor? Okay.
One comment to make, because obviously you go to the meetings, right?
Yes.
Can you just kind of maybe express the butcher job that they're doing north of the city?
Okay.
On the highway there, so.
I haven't been out there. Are we talking?
It looks like they're fixing it, but I think they're making it worse. So I would just
before the overpass or
past on the way to Stoughton, so it'll be 47 north, and basically just as you're getting to the outskirts through the bypass intersection.
Okay. There
for the next kilometers to the airport road is just horrendous. So
okay, the next meeting is at the end of the month here, and I'll make sure I drive out that way and observe that.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And just to follow up, if you have concerns about stuff, we are working on membership and trying to encourage people to join to make sure their memberships are paid up. And one of the reasons is that you have some say and some input onto what is going on out there. So we are contacting some of the places that haven't joined, that aren't active in that, and trying to encourage them so that they can have a say on that. But certainly we will look at that. Thank you. We have minutes of the Estevan Public Library for May 16th. And what is the wish of council? Councillor Broba?
Acceptance and approval.
Do we have a seconder? I missed that. Yeah. Councillor Frank? Oh, there. All in favor?
I just have a couple comments.
Yes.
Sorry. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So just to let everyone know, their spring book sale was very successful. It was raised over $3,000. It's the most successful book sale they've ever had, and they're still looking for more books. The other thing to comment on is the free little libraries. So you'll see them around, and if you see it, it's basically just you can take a book, and I think you could probably put one in there too if you like, but it's mainly for you to take a book and read it, and just get people out there reading, especially if you're in the park and you want to read a book. Look for your free little library. So.
Thank you. Now we have the minutes of the Souris Valley Museum from May 17th, 2023. What is the wish of council? Councillor Cernick?
Make the motion to accept it.
Seconder? Councillor Ford? All in favor? And anybody, any comments on that? Councillor Roba?
I'd just like to let everybody know that the Red River Cart will have the installation soon. It'll be just outside of the museum, and that was basically in collaboration with the City of Estevan and the Métis Association. And there will also be June 21st. There will be the plaque and the sign there, and there won't be a lunch because I believe that will be happening by the CUPE Union over on the fairgrounds, but I'm not 100% sure on that one. So yeah, that'll be in the afternoon on June 21st, and everyone will be welcome.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Veroba. We also have a request from the Souris Valley Museum Committee to dispose of some derelict equipment. Perhaps before we get into that, do you want to give us a little update on where that's at?
Yes, when we did the tour to see where we're going to put the Red River Cart, we went outside, and the museum manager was a little concerned with a few different pieces of equipment, and all of these pieces came from the Stander. When Stander was alive, he actually donated these pieces. So they wanted to touch base with the city to make sure that they're allowed to dispose of these items. And they're rusted beyond repair. They're actually, they have a lot of kids that go there. They have a lot of kids that go to the museum for different outings and different things. And so they're scared that this is actually going to be more of a hazard. So at the same time, they would like to dispose of them. They would also like to give the family a Stander first right of refusal to make sure they didn't want it back. And if they did, then they would just transport it back to the Stander family. And if they don't, they would just like a motion from the city to dispose of them. So I did look at everything, and in my opinion, it's not anything that's of value for the museum.
Do you know if we've contacted the Durr family yet?
Not yet. I believe they're waiting for a motion from the city because it is technically property of the city. So under the agreement with the Stander family, it'll go through the city first and then to the Stander family, and then they would have a metal company come, and they might even get paid for the disposal of it, but if not, then they're just ready to let it go.
Okay, do we have Councillor Cernick?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll make that motion to dispose of it. So.
Councillor Frank? What's that?
I said my arm's getting tired.
It's behind it. Okay, all in favor? Thank you. Now we have the minutes for the Estevan Humane Society from January 16th. I think there's actually February 6th, March 20th, and April 17th. We get a motion on those. Councillor Leeser, seconder. Councillor Cernick, all in favor? Councillor Leeser.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. A few things to draw everyone's attention to. We had spoke at our last council meeting about the importance of the community groups submitting minutes, that not only is there value in council knowing what's happening on these boards that we support financially, but also that the community benefits from regularly getting to hear about the opportunities that exist in the community. So early in June, they held another successful dog jog where they include members of the community and raise funds for the shelter. I did want to highlight that there is quite a lot of ways to support the Humane Society that maybe people haven't thought of before. So the community is well known for donating items like dog food, blankets, paper towel. That list is always available on their Facebook page. Where they're really in need right now is people who are willing to be foster families, to take in kittens temporarily, provide them somewhere safe to stay until they can be rehomed. They're also looking for all different types of volunteers. So They do have vacant board seats available, but if sitting on a board isn't where your interests lie, they're looking for members at large, people who have a unique set of skills and can address one area of concern. They're also looking for people who just want to support the Humane Society in their fundraising efforts. So if you have your food safe certificate and you just genuinely enjoy serving up taco in a bag, you can now sign up through their Facebook page for those specific events. You're not necessarily agreeing to do all of the activities that the Humane Society does, but you can specify if you're willing to bartend at a fundraiser for the Humane Society, if you're willing to serve taco in a bag. They're even starting to broaden the scope that the Humane Society provides in Estevan. So we are all familiar with them taking in and rehoming animals, but they're actually taking a big step forward in addressing animal welfare concerns within the city too. They've forged a partnership with the Estevan Police Service to begin looking at how animals are treated within the city. So if anything like that is of interest to you, please reach out. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Leeser. So we have a tender for the Leisure Centre roof replacement. So that went out, and the tender for the roof, and it was a supply and installation, closed May 16th, and there was 4 tenders that were received. Is that Dan? Dan, do you want to, and Kuflum? No. What's that? Do you want to come up to the mic, just if anybody has any questions on this? Do we do questions before we put it on the floor? On the floor? Okay, can we have a motion for either of those, or do we need to ask questions first? Councillor Vrobet?
Yeah, I just had a couple of questions because of the discrepancy in how much the difference is. Like, the lowest one, $698,000, and the highest one being $2,135,249. So are we confident that the lowest bid, who I believe I've dealt with Action Roofing in the past, is very competent to be able to do this job? Are we confident that the $698,000 will include everything that was in the tender?
Yes, according to their tender form, everybody's bidding the same product.
Oh, we just need your mic on, sorry.
Everybody's bidding the same product. I've looked through it. They're all getting it from the same supplier. So I don't know why there's such a big discrepancy between them. Whether it's because they're in Saskatoon and Action Roofing is in Regina, or...
Right. And so the other thing is square footage. I noticed on some of the packages it didn't have the exact same square footage. And so are they measuring it up themselves, or do we provide the square footage too?
We did provide square footage in the tender package.
Okay.
If you, sorry, Councillor, if you see the invitation to bid, it details how much square footage there is. It says 5575 square meters. And then in the mandatory side viewing, because people have to come to see it, right. So they came and then they toured, they have their questions, everything. And they asked and we gave the answers. It was Rod March and Dan. I just did the softer side of the tender. And then they all had, and when we got the numbers, there was no price breakdown for Action. So basically, I said, maybe they are missing some numbers here. So I called them and I asked to provide a price breakdown. And then as you...
Yes, I saw that.
And then, yeah, everything is the same. So they did not make a mistake.
Okay, then I am confident in making the recommendation that we go with Action Roofing, so I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Councillor Robert. Councillor Releaser?
I'll second the motion. I just have a question about our timeline for this project. When are we asking that Action Roofing have this done by?
Timelines are going to be a little rough because they have to work in concert with the HVAC installation also. Because what happens is your HVAC units sit on a curb, and then that roofing membrane has to go up and over that curb. So they have to work together. So what's going to be the real issue is the supply chain of getting those rooftop units. So it may not be until next spring when we can do this, depending on what our supply chain issues are. But the funding has been extended into next year, so we can do it in the springtime.
And will these numbers hold until then?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
See no more questions. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We also have a tender for the Leisure Center rooftop unit system supply and installation. I believe there was only one bid for that one.
Yes.
From Mid-City. Do we have a motion on that one? Councillor Frank? Second. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Cernick? Oh, or Councillor Ford. Is there any questions or discussion on that? Councillor Leisure?
Can you speak about how these total prices match up against what we were budgeting for this project?
I think that's a Jeff question.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Officer. So I believe we were expecting to put about 1.4 million. We got funding in accordance with that. The ISIP funding that we received was going to be, I believe, 75% of that. We had budgeted 375 grand. I believe this is about $150,000 over. So there will be a motion coming to council, readjusting some of the capital projects. I know supply chain issues has affected some of the other capital projects. So at the next meeting in June, there will be an allocation change for some of the capital projects that are either pushed to next year so that we can complete all the assigned works in this year, and that'll be at the next June meeting.
All right. Councillor Robert.
So just to clarify, we're not spending more than we actually allocated for this year's capital budget. We just may not do as many projects.
Correct, Councillor Grove. Correct, Councillor Grove. I know there is some supply chain issues on the live taps that were budgeted, as well as some of the electrical at Smith Street. So I'll come with a recommendation to council in the coming meetings to make sure that we are within budget on our capital allocation overall.
All right. Then I guess vote. All in favor? Carried. So we have a motion. Can I have a motion for the Churchill Shower Building tender? The recommendation is that we reject. Okay. The tender number for the for Churchill Park shower building construction project be rejected due to incomplete tenders. So can we have a motion on that? Councillor Cernick, Councillor Vroba. I guess, do you guys want to talk about why we're rejecting it?
Yes, they did not supply a bid bond or surety with their tender.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, just in addition to it, one of the people who submitted a tender, we rejected, when we were tendering the police building, we rejected the tender because it was incomplete. So basically accepting it now would backfire. So, and then it would not be legally binding as well because there is no bond, there is no surety.
Okay, so the motion is to reject this. Any other comments? All in favor of the motion?
Sorry, Deputy Mayor, for this next one, I'm going to call a conflict of interest as I'm a member.
DBA.
Which one, the building report, is that? Which one am I missing here?
Should be on your iPad. Here it is.
Okay. Right. I don't know what happened there. Anyways, can we have a motion? The Downtown Business Association has applied to place a portable sign on the boulevard between 3rd Street and RBC parking lot. The sign would be used on a temporary basis to advertise the Estevan night market between June and August. Do we have a motion on that? Councillor Leeser?
I would like to make the motion that we approve this request and that we approve the 50% discount on fees as suggested. Land Development did identify that this aligns with the objectives of the city's strategic plan to encourage more people to visit the city centre, so I would like to support it.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Cernick?
Seconder and a comment there.
Okay, thank you.
So just to be clear, they want their rent dropped from $150 to $75?
Because it's only over the summer.
Oh, okay, so it's, okay.
During the winter.
All right, I just kind of, okay.
Okay, Councillor Robert?
I just have a question. Do we have these types of agreements with every other business that has these signs on the boulevard? We see them up sometimes. There's not-for-profits, different things that put them in the streets. I think it's great because I think it's a great advertising. I just don't know if every not-for-profit or business understands that this is supposed to be happening. And so I just want to think, I just think it should be fair for everybody. If we're requesting this to happen, then I think we need to educate anyone else that we see a sign, that we just give them a email or a call to let them know that this agreement should be filed or signed. And
If it's on the city right away.
right, so that would be on a street or on a boulevard.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I'm in favor of this, but I just, yeah.
All right. All in favor? Carried. You want to see if, yeah, do you want to let Councillor Frank back in? Thank you. Finally got out the door, I just kept on going. Can I have a motion to approve the building permit report for May 2023? Councillor Ford, Councillor Cernick, all in favor? Well, we're going to, under introduction of bylaws, we have bylaw 2223-2074 to provide for the sale of fireworks within the city of Estevan for first readings. Do we have a motion for that? Councillor Leeser and Councillor Vroba. And do you want to come and speak to it or answer any questions on that? Or I don't know if there is any questions. I guess just it is to allow. Do you want to just explain what it will allow people to do? How they will be able to sell fireworks in the city?
The point of this would be to allow businesses within the city to sell classified family fireworks. So any business that wants to do the application and provide those for sale can.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you for coming tonight to talk to us. I was just going to say, so what, by buying the firework doesn't mean I can take it home and set it off in my backyard though, right?
Currently, that is correct.
Okay, just wanted to check that out. Because I do know there's other cities, especially when you're traveling down the Trans-Canada Highway and on vacation, stop at a gas station, you can buy fireworks. So I think this is a great thing that we can allow our businesses to do this, but I think we need to do some educations just to make sure people are aware of where they can set them off.
Just a question. Well, the businesses that fill out the form and say they want to sell them, will they have a list of their rules with this that they're not allowed to do with the fireworks?
Correct. So the sale of fireworks within Canada are federally regulated through natural resources. So they have set rules that they will have to follow.
Okay, any other questions? If not, all in favor? So that's first reading, and second and third will come at the next meeting. Is that where we're at? Thank you. Rate increase. Wow. Councillor Verlbach.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So I had a few different phone calls recently. A couple of them were regarding when they have lawns and different things dug up in the city, when the city does it due to water break in the road. And so Kafloom helped me to deal with each homeowner to basically find out when their lawn would be reseeded. But then I had another one tonight, and maybe City Manager can talk to this, regarding the sewers that are being done over in the Hillcrest area and in different areas over the years that we do them. A few years ago, we made it so that the homeowner is not liable for the area in front of their home on city property. I think the homeowner that had reached out was unaware of that and was just curious as to why homeowners still have to pay for their property, for the sewer line that's connected to their property. So I did explain that to them, but then they also asked regarding putting the liner inside of the sewer versus actually digging up. They told me other cities in the province just put the liner in, don't dig it up. And so I just thought if the city manager had any information as to, do we still do that? I know we did it down on the Valley and King Street, and if we don't do it, do we know why?
Thank you, Councillor Grova. I can speak to that. So whenever we do these water main projects, we do go to the surrounding houses. We usually do test all the sewer line connections. As you mentioned, we will replace the sewer line up to the curb stop. If the homeowner wants the rest of it completed, they can pay at their own cost while the contractor is there to have it completed. We do have one contractor in town that will pull the lining through the city, through the homeowner to the city service, and I believe that is offered as an option to everyone that we talk to.
Okay, thank you. That's good to know, because I again, will make sure that they were given that option. But is that a cheaper option then?
Yes, generally it is the cheaper option, especially if there's any kind of brickwork that's done. We try to promote that there's a full lining pull through instead of digging up. So yes, it is a cheaper option generally. Kafloon may be able to provide the pricing there. I'll have to get that back to council. But yeah, if you have a retaining wall or any type of brickwork, it's significantly cheaper to line it without digging up some of those architectural types.
And then the other question I had, City Manager, was just if I'm having my street done and the city tells me that my sewer is probably more than likely in need of replacement or repair, am I obligated to do it at that time, or does the city just leave me at risk but know that I've been told?
There's no obligation for the homeowner to do it. Obviously, we will suggest that they do because there's a significant cost after the fact. Generally, the contractor is in place. There's no mobilization cost for the homeowner. So we do camera and we do recommend to them that they change it, but I don't think they have any obligation to do something on their own property as demanded by the city. Unless there is any lead services that we identify, we will demand that those be replaced. But yeah, generally there's no obligation.
So one last follow-up. If I decline to do it when I'm asked to do it, or when I'm told by the city that it should be done, but I decline to do it, and a sidewalk is put in front of my house, and then a few years down the road, I find out that I actually have to do it because I have a leak or whatever's back up in my house, am I obligated to now pay for the replacement of that sidewalk if it has to be dug up when I get it done?
Thank you, Councillor Robo. I can get a full report on that, but generally the curb stops are within the individual's lawn property. So we will repair up to the curb stop. So generally, if their system does crumble, it will be on their property that gets damaged. Now, what can happen is they may need to bring a track hoe in that could damage our sidewalk and our roadway, and that's why they have to get a right-of-way permit for that $5,000, I believe is the deposit. But it can hinder the ability for us to properly repair some of our city services. So I'll provide a full report from engineering and water and sewer on that. But yeah, if they damage any city property when they repair their side, they would be on the hook for that. But we will generally go right up to the curb stop when we're doing our service side.
Excellent, thank you. Sorry. one more quick thing. I just wanted to talk about the fact that we did also go to FCM, which was held in Toronto this year, and it was very interesting. It was very much filled with a lot of events, a lot of in-services, a lot of discussion regarding climate change, which I found interesting on the first day. They had it with the Prairies and the Northwest Territories and Nunavut, and there was a lot of discussion from the people of Nunavut that their hunting seasons are changing due to climate change. They're noticing that due to the wilder weather they're having, floods, different things, the ice melt, things like that. Roads are washing away. They're noticing it in their communities, and so yeah, there's people who don't believe in it, and that's fine. But Nunavut welcomes you there for a tour. So the other thing is we did a lot of networking. We did online educational. We also dealt with the harassment that municipal leaders are facing online. A lot of people have no problem with saying different things online, whether there's truth to it or not, and there is actually consequences, so it was good to be on that one too. A lot of networking done, and it was very interesting, and again, that we had firsthand insight to the homeless problem in some of the areas of Toronto, so yeah, in all, it was a very good trip.
Thank you, Councillor Verova. Councillor Waleser.
Thank you. I saw the city's post this week that the Affinity Score Clock that has been much anticipated is finally being installed. So a two-part request this week, if we could have those final costs once they're available, just so that the sponsors are recognized, the committee that started the fundraising of the $200,000 to put towards the clock, all of those numbers can be pulled together so that the community knows what the true cost of this new score clock was, but also what the plan for the old clock is. It's my understanding that at this time we've been unable to sell that clock and recoup some of the costs. So certainly a lot of inquiries about whether it can be put up in the Power Dodge Ice Center or repurposed somewhere else within the community. I also would like to flag early that there's a lot of enthusiasm about this clock, and if we can start looking at what the policy for use will be, whether that's for grad or for minor hockey, any of those type of events.
Thank you, Councillor Waleser. Councillor Ford.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. I also attended FCM in Toronto last week or the week before. It was a great experience. I personally, and Councillor Frank and the Mayor, got to sit in on some innovation conversations as well, and it was very reassuring to know that the innovation center that we toured, we got to speak with some of the people who are running it, and Estevan is very much on the right track of what we're doing with our innovation center and trying to recruit people and remind them that, you can work from anywhere. So it's important to, find somewhere where you're comfortable, and hopefully a lot of people are finding Estevan is the place that they want to work and they want to stay and they can work remotely, and we've got, the resources and the people to be able to help you be successful in our community. So it was very nice to speak to people who have actually heard of Estevan and what we're doing with innovation, and to also know that we are very much on the right track and we're comparable with what the big cities are doing. So that was something really positive I got out of it. And the rest of the week we spoke about energy, we spoke about clean coal, we spoke about carbon capture, and it was astonishing to know how many places throughout Canada knew of Estevan but didn't quite know what was going on down here, didn't know what some of the federal government decisions were doing for us or how they were impacting us in such a great way. So it was a very good opportunity to be able to speak to that and to teach people that, we're not so bad down here. Things are great, we're doing well, we're trying really hard to keep our citizens here, keep everyone happy, and it was a good experience. Other than that, just a congratulations to the Estevan Exhibition Association for a very successful rodeo and successful fair this week. I was volunteering a couple times and the place was absolutely packed. We had to park basically at my house, so I might as well have just walked because it was so busy and so full that it was almost impossible to find a place to park, and I think that's a good measure of success and how busy it was. And Councillor Cernick and I on Saturday night, we got to bartend and help out the Humane Society at the Rodeo Cabaret, which was an awesome time. And I think we did a very great job of, participating in everything. So it was great to see the Humane Society hosting another fundraiser to keep their organization going as well.
Thank you, Councillor Ford. Councillor Cernick.
Thank you, Deputy Your Worship, I have a few inquiries. A couple spots on Nicholson Road need pavement. I'm sure they're on the list there, City Manager, but just wanted to bring it to your attention. There's a couple spots that have been gravel for a while. Kensington Avenue potholes where the water valve was just replaced. They're pretty bad. Definitely should get some attention on those. Obviously, pavement is the best, but until a temporary fix, a couple holes need to be filled. Another inquiry on the 1700 block of First Street. Just speeding vehicles in the area after soccer games or ball games or what have you on that overlooking the valley there. So I will bring that up at the next police board meeting. And a big thank you to whoever took away that cement block on the pathway at Kensington Avenue. So took a year, but it's gone.
Thank you, Councillor Cernick. Councillor Frank.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. I'll also mention too. Yeah, we were at FCM. That was fantastic. I think we converted a few people over to supporting our clean coal. We even gave away our clean coal buttons that we had. So I think we've got some, like 4 or 5 more allies, which is 4 or 5 more than we had before. So we'll take it. It was great. It was a fantastic time. So. And then the only other inquiry I had was just in regards to the parade, which was fantastic. It was great to see everybody out and enjoying that again. I did have a couple people comment to me just that some of the signage prior to the parade, where that route's going to be, I kind of laughed and said, well, we don't need signage. We all know where the route's going to be. It's been the same since dinosaurs roamed the earth. But if we can in the future have a little bit better signage and awareness the day of the parade, just so that everybody knows what routes are going to be closed and what routes to take instead if you are not looking to participate in the parade. I told them to just go and collect some candy, but that apparently wasn't the answer that they were looking for. So.
Thank you, Councillor Frank. I have a couple. There's a pathway on the north of Garner and Phillips Place that's been covered with water. I was wondering if somebody could look and see if it's just because of the excess rain or if we're going to have a low spot out there. As of last week, it was still covered. And also one to the traffic committee. They put a 4-way stop on 14th Avenue and 2nd Street, but they rejected one on 11th Avenue, and they both seem fairly similar. I'm wondering if the 11th Avenue one was from about a year and a half ago. I wonder if anything's changed on that one, or if I could at least find out what the difference was that one was approved and one wasn't. So those are my two. City Clerk. Nothing. City Treasurer. Nothing. Is there anybody else to get a say? You get a Joplin?
Just a reminder that this Friday, the Estevan Car Club has their show and shine at the old Cal Tire lot. That's the 3rd Friday of each month until September.
Thank you. And I guess, who's up there? Jeff.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Just want to say that I attended the Tougher Dirt tour at the Speedway on June 9th. So if anybody says there's nothing to do, we had a midway and the racetrack. So I know Jacqueline does a great job of posting on our Tourism Estevan site everything that's happening. So please, I know people say they never hear about anything, send it to that Facebook page. There's everything there. And that Speedway is a gem in the area, and just to encourage people to go out there and support that when races come.
Well, thanks. I think that as my job is almost done, so I would entertain a motion that we move into committee. Who said that? Councillor Frank. Do we have to vote on that, or we just? Do you need a seconder, or should you get it? Okay, Councillor Weiser, all in favor?
If you'd like to share your feedback on the program you just watched, contact us today